Data Analysis and Business Intelligence with Tableau. We are in week 11, and in this week we are going to learn about nested LODs and mapping functions. A little recap about the previous week. We have learned about advanced calculations, regular expressions and types, table calculations. We have seen use cases on all the table calculations. In advanced calculations, we have learned about first, last, windows and running calculations and int, extract, etc. And we have seen how they behave when we use different types of table calculations applied to it. And we have seen regular expressions, extract the data out into different columns. We have seen what type of regular expressions are available in Tableau. And we saw how the table calculations actually change the value in this advanced calculations and how the value is represented in different ways according to the table calculations or data cross, pane, etc. We have learned about trend lines, how many trend lines we have, how Tableau will trend the data, like show a trend line on the data set, how it will calculate on the back end, and we will see all the trend lines available in Tableau and how they will fit according to the data set and to the requirement. And we discussed about clustering and forecasting, how clustering will be done and how forecasting will be done according to the data set. And what are the data options available for clustering and forecasting? What are the statistical methods available at the backend to do this process? So in this week, we are going to learn about nested LODs and we will see some use cases. We will see geo mapping, geospatial data and use cases, standard maps available in Tableau, what are map hierarchies, and looking into map layers available inside Tableau, background maps, and common issues we go through whenever we're working on the map. So by the end of this week, we will be get the knowledge on how we can use the nested LODs in different scenarios and why we are using the nested LODs, what does it do inside each calculation, etc. And we will see how geo mapping will work, how Tableau will actually point out to each point on the map, and we will see how geospatial data will work, and we will see some use cases over there. And we have some standard general maps inside Tableau, and we will see what are those general maps and how we are going to use them in different scenarios. So the map hierarchies plays an important role whenever we are working on regions, state or cities, etc. So we will see map layers, what are the available map layers inside Tableau, and we will also see the background maps by using the Mapbox software. So the first topic in this week is nested LOD. So we have learned what is an LOD previously. We call them as level of detail expressions, and inside the level of detail expressions we have three of them: fixed, include and exclude. And we have learned about how are we going to use them and how we can use them inside different scenarios whenever we are going to use and whenever we're going to use exclude, include, etc. So in that nested LODs, these are actually nested inside each calculation. Let's say you are already aggregated the data using an LOD expression and you are again aggregating the data based upon it, extra LOD expression. So those are like nested LOD expressions. So the inner expression, whatever you use here, for this example, whatever you're seeing here, it says include order ID, sum of profit. So the inner expression is include order ID here. We are already using LOD inside the profit. So we are also using exclude state. So that one is one more LOD we are using inside the calculation. So this is an outer expression. So in this scenario, the inner order ID and sum of profit will inherit the dimensionality from the outer expression. That means it excludes the state again and gives the max of the value. So this is a nested LOD expression. We can actually use 2 or 3 or multiple nested LODs inside. So the use cases for nested LODs can be whenever you're calculating the average number of unprofitable orders per customer and for each segment. So we wanted to look at unprofitable orders and we wanted to look at each customer and that also for each segment. So in this scenario, we are using two dimensions. First, the value has to go through each order per customer, and this is one kind of LOD and it has to go for order, look at the profit and also should look at the customer also. So unprofitable order per customer, and we are also looking at each segment. So we are bringing at the average of each and everything. So the second scenario where nested LODs can be used as average sales per ship mode and category across region. So if you see here, we have three dimensions here and we are looking at the average sales. So first, the average sales has to go through inside the ship mode and it has to go for the average sales and also look at the category and it also look at the region. So whenever we have different dimensions inside this calculation, the aggregation of the value will be changed according to the dimensions. So if there is no dimension used inside the calculation, let's say in this scenario, what if we don't have the category on the view but we wanted to include the category inside our calculation per ship mode? So in this case scenario, we can actually include that inside the LOD. So and bring up the value. We also wanted to look at the ship mode. And in this scenario, we can use the nested LOD to bring up the values using different cases like fixed, include or exclude, and we can come up with the final value. Let's look at some of the nested LODs to basically understand how it calculates. Nested LODs can be confusing, so we need to get into really simple scenarios to understand how the data works. So first we will see a simple scenario to understand how Tableau is working with nested LODs. So we will take the same example whatever we used on the slide. So what I will do here is I will say our expression is include state, order ID and profit, right? So I will just drag state. Okay, it's taking the map. Let's change that into text, into a text value. So this is how it looks like. And what I will do is I will also drag order ID and I will say profit. So this is how this will work, and we are going to look at state and we are going to look at order ID and we are going to look at the sum of profit. I just write a calculation like this. So first I will include order ID and I'm getting sum of profit. So this is one LOD. Let's name it profit per order. So this is one kind of LOD. Let's drag profit per order into the view. So this will give us the profit per order. If you see here, it is going inside each order ID and it's giving the sum of profit. So this is the actually sales value, whatever you used, just by dragging the profit onto the view. Because we have order ID already on the view, it is giving you the same value. So what if I just say, let's take the max value for this profit. Let's take this out into the filter. We will say everything. Let's click on OK. Let's remove this. Order values remove. Discount remove. We don't need this too as well. Remove. First one is sum of profit and the second one is a profit per order, and one it is the max value. Max value will also be the same because we have order ID on the view. It will go to each order ID and check for the maximum profit. So sum of the profit. So max value is the sum of profit, so we will get the same thing. So the next thing what I will do is I will write a nested LOD by saying I also have state on my view. So what I will do is I will exclude the state. So close this bracket, apply. We have to set this again. This one also will be the same because we have the same each order ID. So what if I just say I'll remove state, and this should be the maximum value. Okay, this is maximum. We are looking at the maximum, right? So because the calculation is actually taking the max amount of profit including the order ID, it is giving us the same value. So what if we have a scenario, say that I have the state on my view and I don't have order ID on my view. If you see here, in our calculation we included the order ID. First LODs include order ID and get me the sum of profit. So first the profit will give us, it will go to each order ID, look at the sum of profit and give us the maximum value. But later it will do is, if we wrote a nested LOD saying that exclude state. So if I have the view like this, all the values based on state, and I want to look at the maximum profit value according to the state and also the maximum profit value which we got according to the order ID. I wanted to compare that. So in this case scenario, we can write here saying that this does not include state inside the calculation, but it will go to each order ID and bring up the maximum value. So how this is being done? Let's see where this 8762 value is coming from. So I will say profit and I will take the maximum value. So I will sort the order ID. Okay, let's sort on value. So if you take this out here, this is also calculated first. So if you see here, the sum of profit according to each order ID, we just sorted on data. The first value is coming as 8762. So we are seeing that include order ID and get me the sum of profit. This is what it is doing first. So later the maximum value of that particular scenario, the maximum value or sum of profit is 8762, right? So I have a case scenario where I have to state on the view but I do not have the order ID. So I wanted to compare my maximum value of profit per state and also the maximum value according to the order ID. So in this scenario, okay, the maximum profit you got according to the state is 1459, but whenever you compare all the order IDs, the maximum order ID value is like sum of profit is 8762. This is the maximum value, but the actual maximum value is this whenever you include the order ID inside your calculation. So this one would be 8762. I just wanted to compare the maximum value of the complete data set to each state. So we can show the same value for all the rows and compare each value with the state. We can write a nested LOD by saying that, okay, first go to the profit and later exclude the state, and this will all depend upon the data requirement. And in this case scenario, I just wanted to show the state with comparison with the maximum value, but it can be a different case scenario for each data requirement. In this one, what I am trying to do is I wanted to compare the maximum value, profit value to the each state value. So this is the formula for creating the maximum value whenever we compare with the other state value. So we can also take one more scenario like average sales value according to the region. So what I will do is we will drag region and we will say ship mode, and let's drag the ship mode here and we will see what are the sales for this. So these are the actual sales according to the region and according to the ship mode. But I wanted to see the average value of all the sales. So if I wanted to calculate what are the sales per each order ID, I have to divide my sales with the count of how many orders we got. Let's see how many actual orders came up for this. Let's see the values for it. Okay, and take just remove the order ID and just count the order IDs. Count D. Okay, we have the values like this. I'll just show it side by side. Take out the order ID because the aggregation will be at level of count. So these are my counts and these are my sales. What if I want to look at the sales per order? So I will just create a calculation field saying that, okay, sales per order, and I will say sum of sales divided by, so I have to take count D of order ID because it is aggregated according to the ship mode and region. So I will just take the count D of order ID. So it will divide the sum of sales by count D of order ID. So let's also drag this into the view. It will show the average sales happen per each region and each ship mode. So this one is actually showing us the number of whatever this 547 divided by 174. So I'll just divide each line with this distinct count of order IDs and give us the value of this 338, etc. If you just go to the analytics page and drag the totals onto the subtotals, you can actually see the average of 427 per all the region. But if you see here, the 427 is the actual value of whenever 501240 divided by 1175, right? So it is giving us the value of 427. But if you look at these four values, and if you just take the sum of 1575 divided by 4, this is not the value you get. It will show you a different value, and this value is not coming out like this. It will actually divide by this and will give you 427. And if you click on here, it is taking the automatic value. Just you have to go inside there and say average. So it will show you a different value. So this value is actually dividing all these four values divided by the 4. This is the average of all these four values you're seeing here. So what happens if I don't have the ship mode on the view? So this will throw a different value. If you see here, this one 394, 500, 492 and 473 is coming from as a different value. So why? This is because this is calculating this by giving the average of these two values, but it is not going into the ship mode. But we have to create a calculated value for an LOD saying that sales per region and ship mode. We are considering both. Let's take, okay, fixed value. I'm just going with the fixed LOD and I'm taking region and I'm also taking ship mode because I wanted to see the sales, average sales per ship mode and also the region. My ship mode is not there on the view, so I will just go and get the value. So what I calculated for sales per order, I'll just drag that order and say, so this is a valid LOD and you can click on OK. And let's drag this value onto a view. If you see here, it is actually giving the sum of all these values. If you can actually change that by clicking on the value, click on that. So to change this, it is actually throwing out the sum. You have to change it to average. You will see the values of 394, 500, 492 and 473, which we have seen before, like we have seen. Okay, let's duplicate our sheet and see the ship mode. like we can see how we have ship mode on the view and how it will behave whenever the ship mode is there. If you have the ship mode, it is this 394 is according to the region and also the ship mode. And if you see here, we don't have the ship mode on the view, and it will show the values like this. But we have to consider the ship mode inside the calculation, and that will throw the average sales. We can see the average sales according to the region and also the ship mode. That's why I threw this LOD as like include also ship mode and get me the value of average sales of a region. So if you see here, there is a difference of dividing by 501 to 40, we're getting 427. If you also include the ship mode, the average is mapping up to the values in the previous sheet. If you see here, if you want to compare the values are exactly the same whenever we have the ship mode onto the view. So these are the values we are getting. So we also wrote a calculation of LOD of average sales per region and per ship mode. Okay. Right now, we wanted to write a calculation with ship mode and also region. It is also considering the region and showing us the sales. But we do not have ship mode on the view, but we have the ship mode inside the calculation, right? So we wrote one LOD right now. So what we will do is, I will write one more LOD based upon I wanted to see the same value which is coming across all the grand totals. So I wanted to look at only at the region. Maybe I will write it as fixed value, and I will say, I will drag this whatever calculation I wrote for the LOD. So what we are doing right now is we are trying to aggregate the LOD by writing one more LOD on the existing LOD. So this will give us the value for, if you drag the ship mode, I mean the fixed region onto the view, if you see here, the last value is 465 for the entire thing, but this value is the grand total of this divided by the grand total of the distinct count. If you want to look at how it works, just drag it to the grand totals, and if you see here, this is the value of 2297 201 divided by 5000 by 9, and it is giving us a value of 465. This one is the average sales of the entire value, and right here you can actually compare the average sales according to each region, which is 394, which is the ship mode included inside the calculation, but you can also see the average of the entire total. That means, okay, my region value is 394 according to the ship mode. So what is my value according to the grand total? That means the entire value of all the profits according to the ship mode. That would be as 465. So I'm at 394. My actual value, the global value is 465, which combines all the regions. So this is at the completed level, and this is at the region level. We can compare each region with the whole value coming from the global values. So if you see here, we have south at 492, and we are at west for 473, and according to the 465, where are we at and how are we performing, we can actually compare it like that. But if you look at central at 394, which has to pick up when we compare with the average value when we are comparing with the global value. So this is one of the use case where you can see the nested LOD saying that, okay, on one LOD we can write an extra LOD comparing the values on a global basis. Let's say we have one fixed value, the average sales, and we can even include all these calculations inside only one calculation by just adding different calculations to show you how this works. And we can also write the same fixed value by including a different dimension to show it a different value. So this is all the nested calculation about we are showing here the average of sales according to the each region. We are also showing the complete average of the sales according to the total sales. So this is one kind of nested LOD. There are like so many case scenarios out there you can use. You can try the nested LODs where simply excluding or including some value. Let's just go with a simple scenario where I wanted to see the same thing as a region, and I wanted to see also the ship mode inside my calculation. So whatever I write is include ship mode and give me the value. I mean, the different scenarios we can work with sales. I already have region on my view. I don't want to include my region inside the calculation. So what I will say, I'll just write include ship mode and give me the value. So it will also consider region because I have region on my view. So I'll get a value of something like this, and if I want to exclude the region again, because I want to region already on my view, so if I want to say the calculation exclude region and only calculate based upon the ship mode, I will say exclude the region from the value. That will give me one more scenario where you can include something based upon the view, or on the above of it we can actually exclude the other dimension and get the value based upon the views. It will be different based upon the views. So if I have like something like a region and I have some like subcategory, and let's drag subcategory onto the view, and I have some sales, and I wanted to calculate some sales, and I wanted to calculate something onto the sales. Let's just say segment, and I also bringing me the value. Do not consider subcategory, but I wanted to bring up a value according to maybe only the category. So what I will write the calculation is include my segment whenever I'm calculating the sales. Let's say sum of sales and close it. So I will write it as include segment. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get the segment onto my view because the segment is not there on my view. So this will give you the include segment, and this will create the sales value according to the segment right now. So we're seeing the same value because the subcategory is also there on the view, right? So if you just go with the calculation and include segment and write all the above this, I'm just writing one more case scenario where I'm excluding subcategory from my calculation. Okay, there is some error. This has to be aggregated. Okay, all the LODs should be aggregated based upon the measure. So whenever you're using a measure inside, it should be aggregated. If you see here, and the value changed, it is including the segment and excluding the subcategory. So the value, what it will do is it will go to each segment and bring the sum of sales, and it will take the maximum value, and later what it will do is it will exclude the subcategory inside the calculation. Even in your view, it will exclude the subcategory inside the view, and it will bring up the value according to the region, because region is also there on your view, and I'm not writing region anywhere, right? So this one will include a region into the consideration of sum of cells. So this is one of the simple scenario of the nested LODs. In here we just used include and also exclude. This one will give you the value of according to both the nested LODs. If I just say fixed here, the value will only get the value from the segment, the fixed value from the segment, it will throw up a different value. So this is how it works, and we can go with different scenarios to understand the nested calculations. For that, we have to know where we have to use fixed, where we have to use exclude, where we have to use include, and what are the dimensions you are considering into the account. So what values should I see, what dimensions should I consider inside my calculation to get the final value. So these are the final main things we have to consider whenever we are working with the nested LODs. So this can be confusing. Whenever you're writing this nested LODs, this can be a confusing one, but whenever you get the grip of what dimensions and what values are using, it will be really easy to work with it.